Well, in the selection in the exhibition, there's actually small groupings from 3 interrelated projects, and the ones that contain a lot of detritus and trash in a nutshell, are the pictures in color, which in turn represent 2 projects, and one of them is a group of pictures called Crossing, and that's a fairly small, discrete body of work, maybe maximum 20-ish number of pictures. They're pictures of trash in these sort of little niches in the desert landscape, little gullies where there's foliage and stuff, and that stuff is there for a very particular reason. They're kind of hiding spots of illegal aliens crossing from Mexico into the United States, and that part of the international border is marked by a irrigation canal. So hence you see a lot of inner tubes, for example, because people are floating across the canal to enter the United States, and they're also, of course, it's the desert, they're carrying water. They're also wearing wet clothes, so you see clothing, inner tubes, empty water bottles, and occasionally something very, very striking, like the 2 pictures in the galleries. One shows a baby carriage, the kind you would wear like a backpack style, and the other is a detail of the ground which includes a Guatemalan passport. And so those are very telling details about, and that's what I like about a lot of this work, or it's my interest is to kind of suggest these sort of epic narratives by looking at these little almost invisible details, because those little bits of trash speak of these kind of very big social movements and phenomena that are sort of shaping the continent today. The other group of color pictures are actually related to a very large body of work that has to do with these abandoned houses, and basically in all the desert communities that surround Los Angeles in an arc, east of Los Angeles, and northeast and southeast. I'm interested in the desert for several reasons. One is, it sort of suggests the whole frontier mythos of the so-called taming of the continent, the westward expansionism, all these kind of, again, really big things in history. To some lesser degree, it's the same reason I'm interested in the British Columbia landscape, of course, but that's not a desert landscape for the most part. The desert has a very particular quality of light. Edges are very sharp because there's very little moisture in the air, and that's very interesting to me just in terms of picture making. And the black and white pictures in this show from a series called Dusk that phenomenon is particularly important to those pictures. There's a kind of, because of the lack of moisture and the lack of ambient light, when the sun goes down, there's this period of time where things just sort of stand up and glow in this kind of very interesting way for me. Another reason that I'm interested in the desert as a kind of arena in which to do my work is that, as I have said to Ann Thomas, nobody seems to ever clean up. So, and I'm talking nobody going back like 10,000 years. So all the traces of how that land's been used and considered back to the first hunter-gatherer societies who came into that part of the world in 10, 12,000 years ago. That's still evidence to be read, and that's what I'm really interested in. My photographs are really about the surface and the kind of narrative fragments that are embedded in the earth, and kind of looking at those things really closely and trying to, come to some sort of understanding about how people deal with those environments, and by extension, how people deal with place, the idea of place in general. But when I go out and photograph, unless I'm going somewhere very particular looking for something, I tend to carry both black and white and color film because, I don't know how spontaneous the pictures look to others, but I don't really know what I'm going to photograph or how I'm going to photograph until I see it. Now, certainly there's a range of what I'm doing. I'm interested in certain things, and there's projects develop out on an accumulation of images of a certain type. But just one example, the crossing pictures, I didn't even know that stuff was there. I encountered that evidence, if you will, when I was hiking to a pre-Columbian archaeological site that I wanted to photograph in black and white that happened to be very close to the Mexican border, and I started seeing this trash, and it's not uncommon to see trash. And at first I didn't think anything of it, and then I started thinking, well, what is this trash? And then so this whole other project really developed spontaneously out of just being there. So, and I made it was very clear that when I decided I would photograph this stuff, although I wasn't sure why at the moment, that it had to be in color. And because of the nature of how I go out, I had color film with me.